Hey, what's up, everybody? Thanks for joining in Action Media Toys. And I want to talk about a project that I've been working on for a few months now. Um, it's actually been in the works in my mind for much longer. It started out as conversations with friends about like what I thought GI Joe and the like should um, should have turned into. What I think what I think Hasbro should have done to reinvent GI Joe to bring in an entirely new genre of fans. They've done this a few times over GI Joe's existence, starting in 1964 with the 12-inch action figures, the soldier, the marine, the action pilot. There was an assortment of 12-inch figures. It was all military based, and that progressed into multiple other incarnations over the years. Just a little short bit of a history lesson. Most people that collect GI Joe know the history of the brand, but it went from a 12-inch fighting toy, a fighting man, to more adventure based due to numerous things, politics and social views on war and military and such. But they had a whole line of adventure team where GI Joe became an adventurer, and then we had the Super Joe, like 8.5, 9-inch figures, where he became a sci-fi hero. And then that was in the late 70s, and in the early 80s, in 1982, GI Joe was completely reinvented yet again at another scale, the 3.75-inch action figure, this size, pocket size, if you will, a figure that a lot of us my age grew up with. And it's been a generational product. My dad had GI Joe figures when he was a kid. He had the 12-inch GI Joes, the military based action figures, and some of the adventure team stuff. So in conversations with friends of mine about GI Joe, I've said numerous times that I think they need to completely reinvent the brand. They need to reinvent it like they have in the past in order to bring in new a new fan base. And it doesn't have to do away with what they're currently making. I just think that there needs to be something else. There needs to be some type of a media property and something to get people interested. And right now, uh, for the corporate branding, for the corporations, they can pretty much they have the money to do whatever they want to do. They can make toys, they can make comic books, they can make um, TV shows if they want. They can make movies. But for the independent toy makers, for the independent property owners, we're kind of limited to what we can do by funding. And Kickstarter is one of the ways that these ideas, these projects get funded. And there's numerous Kickstarter campaigns out there that I've backed in the past, that others have backed, that have successfully funded, that have been based on, loosely based on, the passion that we have for GI Joe. One in particular that I backed was the Strike Force Alpha 3 3/4 inch O-ring action figure that brought about some new features to the O-ring construction figure, the format, that format of action figure, with a pop and swap feature. Hands, feet, heads, and everything are interchangeable. Some of the parts are also interchangeable with vintage action figures, vintage GI Joe type figures. Then, of course, you have another independent toy maker who has done well through Kickstarters, and I also buy their products. Man, no, why does it slip my mind as soon as I'm trying to say the name? Marauder Inc., Marauder Task Force, those figures. They're a 4-inch modern articulation type of figure. One of the cool things about those figures is they're fully customizable, all the way down to like you can buy just individual parts and pieces from their website. And all of the accessories are interchangeable. They have different web gear sets for them. I mean, they're highly detailed, and there's a ton of customization that can be done and a ton of playability. Another Kickstarter that I backed recently was the Robo Skull. It was I would call it a revolutionary vehicle that works for multiple scales of action figures. I think most people are using that for the 3.75 inch figures in the 4-inch modern articulated action figures. I have both. I have the O-ring and I have the 4-inch modern articulated figures. But that vehicle set will also work with 6-inch action figures. I mean, it's pretty cool, the versatility that they put in this and all of the design work. It's great. But there's no media. There's no media to back it up. It's purely based on nostalgia and some of the other stuff that's coming out. The 1/12 scale figures, no less an awesome project. Strike Force Alpha actually released a comic book with their campaign. They released a comic book to kind of give some backstory to what Strike Force Alpha was set up to be. Then you have Operation Recall, which took some of the guys that worked on the original ARAH GI Joe line, the 3.75 inch, and made sort of a continuation of that. They are really doing some cool stuff. They're going back to like the original ways that those guys created and sculpted action figures, the way that they have them made. And they also have taken fan input with allowing some fans to design some of the figures, some of the characters. And it's just a really awesome project. I back that one. Another one, Call Sign Longbow, is a kind of a continuation of the 3.75 inch O-ring format in what GI Joe could have been, I guess. There's a lot of really cool designs for that, but unfortunately, we only have one figure from that so far. I need to look into some updates and find out where their Kickstarter is right now, or where their project is setting right now. But there's tons of independent makers out there, and I think that's the future or the present of making cool toys. It lies in the independent toy makers, because they're making stuff that the big companies aren't making. They're ideas that the big companies aren't putting out. It seems like a lot of the companies like Hasbro, Mattel, they are relying almost solely on nostalgia to sell their products. With the GI Joe Classified series, they're pretty much relying on nostalgia for that. A lot of the designs that they have, it's just ARAH made over in 6-inch scale, better articulation, different accessories. Anyway, independent stuff. I've wanted to do this for a long time, and I reached out to a few people for advice or for information, and was basically either ghosted or kind of nobody wanted to talk to me about it. And I had reached out to some people about doing our own thing, and had one person who was very specifically interested, and with nothing in return, like no conversation of anything in return, just offered to help make it a reality. And I greatly appreciate that. And I kind of jumped into everything without having much of an idea of exactly what I was doing, because I'm just a guy that likes making YouTube videos and collecting toys. But he offered a lot of advice and hooked me up with some contacts, and we have the foundations of a project for action figures. But that's missing one thing. I believe very strongly that if you're going to put out toys, if you're going to put out action figures, that there needs to be some kind of grounding story to that. There needs to be some type of a background that will tell people what they are and what they're about. You know, you're introducing characters that, like, I don't know who the hell this is. You know, you need to have some type of a background for those characters, and the best format for that, in my opinion, is a comic book. And I had talked to a good friend of mine who has also put out a couple of graphic novels in the past and is currently working on another one. He said, "Why don't you let me help you? Let's do it together." And it kind of just snowballed from there. Talked to several people about artwork, talked to several people about the writing process, the publishing process, and I've learned a lot along the way. But I've had this story in mind, and it kind of connects a bunch of elements from things I really enjoyed as a kid, things I enjoy as an adult, and things I hope a lot of other people enjoy as well. I'm a huge sci-fi fan. I love science fiction. I also love ancient history and the concept of there being like artifacts in the world, like legendary and mythological artifacts throughout history and in popular culture. And we kind of decided to go that route with it. This is something that I've wanted to do for a long time and just didn't really have the direction for it until recently. So I'm writing these stories and I'm handing them off to my friend to help me edit and do some rewrites and make it make more sense and put it into a comic book script format. And from there, we're handing that script off to the artist he worked with for his books. The artist is doing the pencil and ink. And then this guy is, he's not in the United States, but I'm going to feature everyone that I can in live streams coming up. But I was looking around for people to do coloring and lettering. And what made the most sense to me, so my editor and co-writer, he is somewhat local to me. And I wanted this to be a project that involved people I know, people I'm friends with, because I firmly believe that when it's something done with a group of people who know each other, that it can be a lot more meaningful. And I've worked with the guy that I ended up going with for color and lettering on multiple different media projects throughout the last several years. And it just made sense to give it to him and see what he can do with it and see if it's something he's interested in doing. And I kind of want this to be a project that we all take ownership in. And he's doing, in my opinion, a great job with the color and the lettering. Is he a professional? With comic books, no, but he is a professional graphic designer. Is my editor and co-writer, is he a professional? No. I mean, he's put out a couple books before, but he actually owns a comic shop. But so I mean, I guess he is a professional, but I'm not a professional. I don't want or need this to be a professional product. I want this to be something that conveys passion. And our artist Elisu Uvea, um, he is, I believe he is a professional, an independent professional. He's worked on a lot of different properties over the years, and some of them known, some of them very independent and very niche. But we're keeping our group of people as small as possible, and we have multiple options for distribution, printing, toy shows, and whatnot. The action figure aspect of it, I'm looking at putting that out after we establish the comic book, and I have a lot of ideas for things that will make our action figure line more unique, something a little bit different from what everybody else is doing. It'll have specific features that will make it unique. And we are going with the Strike Force Alpha Pop and Swap O-Ring 3.75 format. And I'll be working with Jason Schermeyer as my project manager for that. And he will be setting me up with all of the people needed to get the design work done. I'll be, I'm saying I will be because I believe in this project and I believe that I can make it a reality. I have friends who do 3D printing, 3D printed action figures already that I've talked to about making the samples for me, and I will be doing all of the hand painted paint masters for these action figures. I have a couple of friends, a couple of long-term friends that I may also tap for some coloring ideas on those, or to do a paint master of their own if they want. But to get into ARC and what it is as a whole, basically take elements of all these things that I love and enjoy, science fiction, archaeology, and roll them into one as artifact recovery and containment. It's a team of people in an organization that goes back millennia. It's an ancient organization, different names throughout its existence, but it's ARC. It is the ARC, and that Dan and I talked about having that kind of play into a few different things with mythology and what an ARC is, and how that could be used in the story. But we're looking at doing multiple issues. This isn't just a graphic novel. This is a multi-issue comic book. I have 4 issues written, and I'm working on the 5th issue, getting ready to start the 6th as soon as I'm done. But we are using we're taking something from history, and we're also using a lot of historical facts. So it's more adventure archaeology based than it is like a fighting or militaristic type of team or storyline. So think very heavily adventure, conflict, Indiana Jones, Tomb Raider type stuff. GiJoe Adventure Team obviously is a heavy influence for it. We have the good guy faction being ARC, the bad guy faction being the Shadow Order. The Collector is the main antagonist, and you have a team of protagonists that we will keep small. The way I have the stories set up is they kind of jump around through different periods of time with some of these characters, giving some origin background and whatnot. The first story that we have is called The Mask of Mordred, and as of right now, and things can change, but as of right now, these stories, this one is a 2-parter, a part 1 and a part 2, of course. But this draws from Arthurian legend and even a little bit from the Excalibur movie. And the central artifact is the mask of Mordred, and how I don't want to give too much of the story away, but think along the lines of the search for Avalon, the search for Arthur's last stand, the battle where he was struck down by his son. But anyway, playing into a lot of Arthurian legend, we're using realistic locations. We're using actual locations. We're taking some realism from those locations in the artwork. A lot of like little details that if you're not familiar with the Arthurian stuff, you're probably not going to pick up on. But we have action, we have adventure, and we have some history, because I love history. I've always been a huge fan of ancient history, mythology, and artwork and such. So that's what our first story is going to be based on, is Arthurian legend and the search for Avalon. I'm going to show you a little bit of the artwork that we have right now for this. This is not 100% completed artwork. Let me share my screen here, but I'll show you the logo for ARC. This is the logo that we ended up going with. I created a rough basis for this logo and then handed it off to Dana, and Dana refined it and added some effects to it. The stone look of the lettering with a more modern circular logo there. And like I said, I've used StreamYard for live streams before, but I have not done anything like this. Let's take a look at the cover art. This is the cover art that we're going to use for the promo materials. I actually had 11 by 17 posters printed up with this artwork, and I'll be showing this at a toy show coming up, the Kentuckiana GiJoe and Toy Show, on January 30th, starting January 30th. And we'll also be launching our Kickstarter to fund this project. I hope that I can get this project funded through Kickstarter. We're going to have to raise a pretty considerable amount of money to pay for all of the production work, the tiers that we have in mind for the Kickstarter, which there are currently 7 different backing tiers, everything from just a digital download of the book all the way up to having yourself drawn into the story as a cultist, because there's a cult. Yes, there is a cult in the story, and that cult basically worships and lives by the artifacts that they're hunting. Bring up, we have 3 sample pages done, and color and lettering is in progress. It is a work in progress for these sample pages. Here we have page 1, and the character that you see here is an ARC member that his working title name, temporary name, is Kane, and he has a mysterious background that won't be revealed until later on in a future issue. But I have the story written for that, which is I've written it to be very emotionally gripping. And let me get page 2 pulled up here. Let's see. Page 2, I want to show you a few of the details in this here. So this scene is inside an abbey. This is an actual place, and we used colors that are shown in the physical location, and right down to how the monks are dressed, using the white robes with the black trim. And our artist put the research into, like, what types of books would be kept in a library in a monastery, and he has all of the books titled. Dana went through and colored all of the books individually, and like, it's this scene has a lot of content to it and a lot of realism, and I love that. And let's take a look at the third page. Kind of leads into our next scene, our scene 2, this being scene 1. Obviously, there's still some color that needs to be done on this page, but you have a better view of what the monk is wearing, and I can show you how I can show you how these monks dress and what everything looks like. But I like what he's doing with the lettering and the color. It looks like a comic book, and that's exactly what I wanted to go for with this. So, but just a little bit of background here. I wanted to keep this video at 30 minutes or less to just kind of describe what it is that I'm working toward with ARC, and I hope that you will find it as interesting as I do, and that I'll be able to properly convey the amount of passion that's going into this project, because this is basically the culmination of every recreational thing that I love. It's action figures, it's comic books, it's GI Joe, it's archaeology, it's ancient history, it's mythology. All of these things kind of rolled into one. I'm a huge adventure fan, love adventure movies. There's there's one on Apple TV right now that's really, really good, and I don't think that it got great ratings, but I'm going to show you that real quick. Adventure Archaeology, Apple TV. And sometimes I can't spit out the names of some of these movies when I'm thinking of them. But yeah, Fountain of Youth is the name of this one. Yeah, Fountain of Youth on Apple TV. Check it out if you have Apple TV, if you have an opportunity to watch this, or you can download it. It's a really, really good movie, and I can't say enough good about it. It's fun, it's adventurous, and my wife and I both really enjoyed watching it. We both like the adventure archaeology genre of movies. So, but anyway, I'll have more to come on ARC, and I'll be posting videos with updates on the artwork and where we are with the project. But again, this Kickstarter campaign, we need to raise $10,000. That's what we need to raise. It's $10,000. We have multiple backing tiers for everybody, and different cover ideas, different cover version variants and whatnot. We'll have cover A, cover B. We'll have a foil variant cover, and all of these will be limited to. Some of them will be limited exclusively to the Kickstarter. They won't be available outside of it, or there will be a very limited number available outside. So we want to promote a little bit of exclusivity with some of the offerings in the Kickstarter campaign. So be sure to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell so that you get updates as we go. And I will see you again soon. Thanks for watching.